Welcome to Time Travelers Weekly, where every story is a journey into Britain's past. This week's edition takes us to Derbyshire in 1935. Let's begin. Beneath these waters lies a lost village. A place where families once lived, children played in the lanes, and church bells echoed across the valley. Today, thousands of people visit Ladybower Reservoir every year, often unaware that an entire community once stood beneath the surface. Homes, roads, a school, a church, all sacrificed to create one of Britain's most important reservoirs. And when the water levels drop, the past briefly emerges once more. This is the story of Derwent, the village that disappeared beneath the water. Long before Ladybower Reservoir existed, the Derwent Valley was home to a small but thriving rural community. The village of Derwent sat peacefully among the hills of what is now the Peak District National Park. By the early 1900s, around 100 people called Derwent home. Life revolved around farming, local trades, and the close-knit relationships that often develop in isolated communities. At the heart of the village stood Derwent Church, a building with roots stretching back to the 16th century. Nearby were the village school, a village hall, and rows of stone cottages that had sheltered generations of local families. For centuries, life in the valley had changed very little. But beyond the surrounding hills, Britain's growing cities were creating a problem that would ultimately seal Derwent's fate. During the early 20th century, Britain was changing rapidly. Cities such as Sheffield, Derby, and Nottingham were expanding, and their growing populations needed a reliable supply of clean drinking water. Engineers began searching for the perfect location to create a new reservoir. The Derwent Valley offered exactly what they needed. Its steep sides and natural geography made it ideal for storing vast quantities of water. In 1935, work officially began on the Ladybower Reservoir project. For planners, it was a remarkable engineering opportunity. For the people living in Derwent, it was devastating news. The plans required not only the flooding of Derwent, but also the neighbouring village of Ashopton. Entire communities would have to disappear. The decision had been made. The valley's future would be very different from its past. As construction progressed, residents were informed that they would need to leave their homes. Many families had lived in the valley for generations. Their roots ran deep. They had celebrated weddings, baptisms, and community events here for decades. More than 100 people from Derwent and Ashopton would eventually be forced to relocate. Some accepted the decision reluctantly, others opposed it, but there was little they could do. Gradually, homes were emptied. Neighbours said their goodbyes. Buildings were demolished to prevent hazards once the water arrived. Roads that had once connected the villages would soon lead nowhere. Bodies were exhumed from the church graveyard. For many former residents, the greatest loss was not their homes. It was the disappearance of an entire community and way of life. The dam was completed during the Second World War. In 1943, the reservoir began to fill. Slowly, the water crept across the valley floor. Fields disappeared, roads vanished. The familiar landmarks that residents had known all their lives were swallowed by the rising water. Over the following years, the transformation became complete. Where homes, farms, and village streets had once stood, there was now only water. Derwent had vanished from the landscape. Although Derwent disappeared beneath the reservoir, it has never been completely forgotten. During periods of severe drought, water levels can fall dramatically. When that happens, traces of the lost village begin to emerge. Foundations appear. Fragments of roads become visible. The outlines of buildings that vanished decades ago briefly return to daylight. One of the most famous examples occurred during the drought of 1995, when large sections of the village became visible once again. Thousands of visitors travelled to the area hoping to catch a glimpse of the lost settlement. For a short time, it was as if history had risen from beneath the water. Eventually, rainfall returned, the reservoir filled, and Derwent disappeared once more. Today, Ladybower Reservoir supplies water to millions of people and remains one of Britain's most recognisable reservoirs. Most visitors come for the scenery, walking trails and spectacular views. Few realise they are standing above a lost community. The story of Derwent is a reminder that progress often comes at a cost. While the reservoir brought enormous benefits, it also erased a village that had stood for generations. Yet Derwent has never been completely forgotten. Its story continues to fascinate historians, locals, and visitors alike. And beneath the still waters of the reservoir, traces of that vanished world remain, waiting for the next time the water falls. waiting to be seen once again. What do you think? Was flooding Derwent a necessary sacrifice, or was too much lost in the process? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for traveling through history with Time Travelers Weekly. If you enjoyed this week's edition, subscribe so you don't miss the next journey into Britain's past. Until next time, safe travels.